Okay, in this video, I'm going to go over some real reviews from real people who are living in Orlando and see what they have to think about it. I'm going to cover some 5-star reviews all the way down to like the worst, and you're going to love it. So stay to the end, and you're going to hear some of the worst reviews that might cause you to not want to move to Orlando or maybe cause you to leave. Let's get into it. What's up, everyone? My name is Cameron Hodge. On this channel, I talk about living in and moving to Orlando, Florida, dropping videos for you every single week and helping you make the decision whether you should live here or maybe move here and everything in between. So this number popping up below is here to help you. Feel free to reach out, call, text, email. It doesn't matter what you do. I am here to help you in making that move to Orlando, Florida. I absolutely love it. I've been in that position myself, and I think everyone should have the right help when it comes to making the move to Orlando. So feel free to reach out anytime, here to help you. Now, in this video, I don't know why. I had this urge. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to pull up some reviews. So niche.com is a website I use for a lot of the data here to have a general aggregate of safety information, public information when it comes to listing suburbs and things like that. This isn't like to push you in any way, but it's a good overview of maybe if you want to look in Orlando and just get a general view, or any city really in the US for that matter. I also did they have reviews from people who live in Orlando or maybe are moving to Orlando, things like that. And I decided I was going to pull a general review. So I have 5-star, 4-star, some average, and some of the worst reviews on Orlando. And I'm going to cover those. I'm going to read them, and we're going to talk about each one and see what we have. All right, so we're going to start with the 5 stars, some of the great reviews. All right, so the first one we have here is, I love all the adventurous and relaxing things that are on every corner. The theme parks are a great place to experience with your family. There are tons of restaurants to try, ranging from Mexican, American, Chinese, Japanese, and many more. The views from the wheel are spectacular. That's true. You can see Disney, SeaWorld, and Legoland. The malls are a great place to hang out with friends and get some amazing clothing and nerdy items. Overall, I love Orlando. So yeah, I mean, if you're someone who's moving here and you love the parks, you love like the wheel is the Ferris wheel. So if you go to our website, this is always linked down below in the description. Like I have a picture of the wheel in Orlando. It does have great views, obviously. Like any Ferris wheel, like when you get on them, like they clearly are always placed very smartly, and you can get amazing views of the area. And it's true, I love it. Yeah, and talking about like SeaWorld and Disney World. So if you are a theme park junkie, clearly like Central Florida is awesome in general, right? And Orlando is the hub of that. So especially if you're, you love Disney, you love Legoland, you have kids, great place. I mean, I still love Orlando, and like I'm not a huge like junkie of theme parks. I go for my family and my kids. That's why I go. I'm not a huge fan of the crowds, but it is like an amazing thing. And like the malls are hit and miss. So a lot of people love them. Again, it goes back to like, if you can deal with the crowds and in those areas, but yeah, the malls are great. It's like any big tourist city, like the malls are going to be meant to attract people and things to do. And like, they're going to have pretty much every store you can imagine. So, and like any mall, right? It's like, especially if maybe the malls aren't as big as they used to be. Obviously this is from 2021, which not much has changed in terms of malls since that time. But, obviously even during COVID, like malls weren't a big thing, but no, I agree with this. There's a lot to do in Orlando. And if you're into that kind of stuff, like it's the perfect place for you because there's so much of it. All right, the second 5-star, we have another one. So Orlando is a great city, plenty of fun activities, beautiful weather year round, and plenty of natural amenities. City is becoming more and more populated, so traffic may be a concern in certain areas, but I love this city. Beautiful. Man, some people just need to reread their stuff before they comment it. I'm bad with that too. But so Orlando is a great city. Now, it's not for everyone. Clearly, I mean, people love to poke fun at every city. Like, I wouldn't want to live in LA, but some people really love it. There's a lot of fun activities. It's so true. Unfortunately, the one thing I will say about Orlando is people are always funneled towards theme parks and like this, the downtown stuff and things that are going to be more expensive. But I can tell you, there's a lot of like when you leave, especially towards like Lakeland, like I always forget the name. It's Dinosaur Adventure Park, like relatively affordable. Or east of Orlando, they have a lot of cool like nature preserves and stuff like that. Like, there's so much to do. Like any American city, like everyone gets funneled, and when you first move somewhere, you're a tourist, like you get funneled to the expensive areas. But it's like really when you dig deep, you start searching and just like doing your own research and talk to the locals, you start to find cheaper options that are honestly, I think, a lot better, especially if it's local, because you're supporting local community, local people, and that's always what you should be doing. I think it's what built America, and it's like an amazing thing. But yeah, there's a lot to do do in Orlando. And like we mentioned in the first comment, the beautiful weather year round. Okay. It's kind of if you like it or you hate it. It's really 50-50. Obviously, during the summer, it's hot and muggy. I mean, I don't think anyone can contest that. To say you love the weather during, like, the summer where it's guaranteed to rain every day, I don't know. Personally, like, I'm also a type of person where this fits me. I can kind of deal with it. Humidity's tough, but, depending what you do for work and where you go, like, obviously, if you're an AC, like, it's kind of negligible. And you are going to get sun every day at some point for most times. Obviously, there's a hurricane coming in or tropical storm or things like that. Like it changes, right? It's the East Coast. But Florida, hit and miss. Like the beautiful weather, hey, clearly this person really loves the weather. And a lot of people do. It's why they choose to stay here in Florida. But, there are a lot of sunny days in Florida. It's not much less. I think I covered this in one video before, but it's not much less than like states like California. The caveat to that is you're still getting rain pretty much every day during the summer, maybe like late spring, especially during the fall and things like that. But yeah, the winter's gorgeous. So even if you're coming, like you're like a second home person or a retiree, like the winter's beautiful here. So yes, I definitely agree with that time of year. All right, so now we're gonna hit into some like average reviews. Like these are 4 and 3 stars, and I like to give like the average, like more real average opinions from people. So this one says, I was born and raised in Orlando. Despite the troubling times in our country, the community that I was brought up in has been continually supportive and accepting of the ever-expanding culture that has began to flourish all throughout the city. I'm happy to call it home. That's so true. I think, so when we first came to Orlando, I think a lot of people going back to it, a lot of people, because of COVID and the shutdowns and all that stuff. I mean, we were still in the beginning of COVID, like for that first 2020, we were obviously in California, and I saw so many local businesses and restaurants who are gone for good. And they've been in business since the 40s and they're gone because with the mandation and the shutdowns, they just weren't able to stay open. A lot of people don't like that. I mean, I even saw like a hate comment on the channel saying like, oh, well, Canada declares Florida a dangerous place to live. I really don't give 2 cares. I'm trying to keep polite here for the family, but like I don't care. The fact that Florida is now in a place where like it can't be shut down is amazing, and that's also why a lot of people moved to Florida originally. Now people get concerned. I think it's not for everyone. Like you understand, just because you're trying to get away from somewhere, it doesn't make the grass greener. It's only green where you water it, and that's something I truly believe. So Florida can either be a great place or it can be a terrible place. It really depends on your needs, your family, and things like that. That's why I'm here as well and my team. So if you reach out, you're just having a conversation about, hey, in 12 months I'm thinking about moving to Florida and Orlando. Hey, reach out. I'm happy to have the conversation. I have it all the time, every single week, and I love it because I was in that place originally, and just kind of working through what that could look like for you can help you with that move. So, but yeah, and in terms of the culture, I was really surprised. Like I said, before we initially took a discovery trip to Orlando to see if we really wanted to move here, it was about 10 years prior to the last time I was in Orlando, just because being in the military, like I just, there's no way. I mean, I was stationed in Pensacola for a little bit, which is in the panhandle of Florida. So there was no time I wasn't going to be able to come down here to Orlando or anything like that. But I mean, Orlando has changed a lot. It definitely has gotten more crowded, and especially because of COVID, it just kind of expedited the growth of the area. A lot of people don't like that, but in terms of like the culture, I mean, I was really surprised. Like my wife's Hispanic, her family's Hispanic, and like we were actually surprised. Like there's a huge community here, and you can still find amazing food and things like that. I will say it's maybe not as good as like some of the food I found in California, just my opinion. The variety of culture and stuff here is insanely, like it's a lot more than I remember even 10 years ago. And I think that's great. I love a city that has a lot of different culture. It's like, that's what America is. It's just a melting pot of culture. So it's really cool. Okay, our next 4-star is right here. So I have lived in Orlando for the past 2 months now, and so far I love it. I'm from Florida, but I have never lived in Orlando, and so far I'm having a great time. Although rent prices have flared, the city is great and has a lot to offer with newer builds from apartments to shopping centers. It's true. With a lot of people moving to Orlando, we have seen new construction just skyrocket. And it's not just Orlando, the whole country's kind of experienced this in some way, shape, or form. We have just been, whether it's rentals or homes and condos to purchase, like we're just in a massive shortage. And it's been a problem that's been here for a long time, and I don't see it ending anytime soon with, the amount of they're trying to build. But it's true, there's a lot of expansion here in Orlando. The one thing I say, California saw expansion a lot during the 90s, early 2000s. And while they're trying to make it better now, even they're trying to get like ADUs and like anything they can to lessen the problem. Here in Florida, there's still a lot of room for expansion. I know a lot of people don't like it, but hey, guess what? That's how things work. Is a lot of people are starting to see Florida. They love it. They want to move here, especially with the current political environment, all that stuff, whether you lie in one way or the other. it leads to expansion. People are coming, supply, demand, they have to expand. And it can be a good or bad thing. I can tell you that if you are looking to capitalize on getting newer construction or maybe a newer apartment, yes, this could be a great chance to come to Orlando. And the downfall, though, with all people moving here, and by the way, this is a whole country. Like I've gotten a lot of comments and hate, especially on my cost of living video for the city. Like, hey, it's too expensive. I have to work like 80 million jobs because people are just so dramatic. But it's true. And it's the whole country. Retrospective, a lot of people are like, oh, it's so hard to afford rent here with my current income. It's a whole country. Whether they want to admit it or not, like it's very clear that in the next 18 months we're going to see a lot of problem. Like even with what they say is 8.5 inflation rate, that I bet you it's much higher, and it could be higher in certain areas of the country. And it's insane. Everyone's feeling the pressure, and the rents have definitely gone off the charts. I mean, it's one of those situations where it can be advantageous for you to purchase, but it's hard, especially if you're relocating here to Orlando. You might want to rent for the first year, and unfortunately, it's a problem that's probably not looking to get better any soon. I can tell you that even like a lot of times they're trying to pass legislature this year to cap rent prices. Looking at California and stuff like that, it doesn't really work, because the problem is like those rent caps only apply to certain locations, and even when it comes to affordable housing, it's not really affordable. And unfortunately, this has been an issue that's been tug and play for decades, and I don't know if I see it getting better anytime soon. All right, next 4-star review. Orlando is a massive city with so many things to do. However, the safety and school quality varies greatly depending on which part of Orlando you find yourself in. That being said, theme parks are great, and so is downtown. Now, this one was a little bit older, not too much. I think it was like the end of 2020. And so personally, like this is kind of how I felt initially when we came to Orlando. It was like the safety in the schools, like having a kid that was just about to go into school age at that time or getting close to it. It was a really big concern. Safety wise, it's like any city. I can tell you downtown is great if you love bars and restaurants, things like that. I'm not so much of a downtown person myself, but a lot of people, especially young professionals, really love downtown. They love living in there. They love being in the city and all those things. I can tell you it's not the best downtown I've ever been to, just an opinion, but you have to go see it for yourself. Theme parks are great, but at the same time, like Orlando, it's a big city, but it's probably more spread out than I think a lot of cities. Like when they say massive, I don't know if this person's ever been to like a lot of cities like LA, New York City, things like that, because those are big cities. So Orlando's big. I wouldn't call it massive though, but it is growing and it is expanding. So maybe in time, like, I could definitely agree that it could be a massive city. Safety and school quality, I'll be honest with you, schools, it's really hit and miss. It really depends on your budget and where you're trying to live. Because schools, like I always thought schools were terrible here, and the more I did research, the more I found out there's actually a lot of great rated schools. And I know a lot of people have their opinion about the current school environment here in Florida right now. But even going off of previous, when they were part of the National School Board, if that's like something that's really important to you, I think the schools have really improved in Orlando. And it's really, you just kind of have to pick and choose, is that, you might have to give and take something. Would you want a great school district, or do you want like a certain living? Because you might have to give and take. And unfortunately, it's something that, especially as parents, if you're concerned about schools, it's something that we have to do for our children to make sure they have the best upbringing. I can tell you, like, we might even look at public schools. Like, we're actually looking at probably try to get our son into like a charter school. And there are options like that. There's a lot of options here in Orlando. It's just, you might realize you might have to give and take to be able to get, certain things that you want for your living. And that's a conversation that we can help with. So happy to do that anytime you need. All right, now we're getting to 3-star. So my negatives are that it is traffic heavy, noisy, a little scary downtown, and it is my hometown though, so it's nostalgic and it is beautiful here with lots to do. Again, we've already talked about lots to do. We don't need to get into that. Traffic, yeah, it's god awful, especially during like the winter when like all the snowbirds come and like people vacation here a lot. It gets even worse. But yeah, traffic's awful, and I'll tell you, California traffic's awful, New York City traffic's awful, and people have different opinions of different locations. Everyone loves to argue like my state has worse traffic. My state has worse traffic. If it's a city area, traffic's awful. I mean, in my hometown, this is even like some people grew up with no stoplights in their town. I had one flashing red light and I had one regular stoplight in my hometown where I grew up, and that traffic was nothing, and I really enjoyed it. And I can tell you, it's anywhere in Orlando, yeah, it's awful. Especially taking the 4, man, there are so many accidents on that highway. You really have to be careful. I mean, I think one thing I noticed when I came out here was how many blown tires there were on the side of the 4 when you're driving down. Like, holy crap, people, like, change your tires. Like, what the heck's going on here? But yeah, downtown recently, there's actually been a lot of like, a lot of safety issues when it comes to downtown. A lot more. I will tell people, being a vacation city, you get a lot of tourists. You get a lot of like secondary home people who come in during certain parts of the year, and also with increased population, it does make a risk for safety. And of course, obviously, recent light with a lot of like police stations and getting hate and things like that. You know, you get there's a lot thousand ways to look at this problem, but yeah, depending where you live, safety can be a concern. But personally, that's where you have to weigh the options. And there's a lot of information out there. You can look up any public crime data and things like that, and you can help make your decision about where you want to live. Sure, you might want to live in downtown, but it doesn't mean it's the right area for you. And for this person, clearly, like they're saying it's a little scary, but then again, like it's all perspective. Like if you're coming from Chicago and like downtown where the safety ratings are even lower than Orlando, Orlando might be a better option for you, and you might think downtown is like the safest place in the world. It's all perspective. So it's all opinion based, but yeah, there has been a lot more recent, safety issues I've seen in downtown when it comes to the news and things like that. All right, in the last average review, not for everybody, but there is so much to do, and you were able to get so much exposure to new things. Yeah, so the only thing I wanted to show this one is like it's not for everyone. Like just because you get excited about moving to Florida and Orlando, it doesn't mean it's for you. It's not for everybody. In fact, like there are plenty of people who visit here thinking about moving here, and they're like, oh, never mind, I do not want to live here. Which is why if you want to save yourself the hassle, like again, reach out to us. We can help you make that decision and figure out if this is even right for you. We'll give you the good, the bad, the ugly, just like I do on this channel. But yeah, it's not for everybody. You either like it or you hate it. It's like any other city. For some people get really passionate about, like, I love living in Orlando. Like, oh my gosh, like, and so many people get so upset. Like, no, where I live is the best. Who cares? Like, we live in the United States. The greatest thing about this country is that every single state has its own type of living, type of way, weather, everything like that. And you just need to find out where you fit in. And once you find that area, you find your community, hey, run with it, go for it, live where you are treated best and how you want to be treated. All right, and now we're going to get into the terrible reviews. And I love these because people just like really don't like their lives. But it's funny, but they do have good points in some ways. So, all right, the first one we have is excessively overpopulated, no affordable housing, the rudest, hateful people I've ever encountered in my life. Fake, phony, soulless people feel like obnoxious, selfish New Yorkers and suffocating heat. This place is for you. Traffic is a nightmare. No culture. Worse healthcare. Man, this person, like, I don't know what happened to them, but man, I feel like they kicked them out of the plane with a parachute, and that's how their first experience started in Orlando. That's funny. Excessively overpopulated. Well, okay, you're living in a city. Personally, like, I'm not a fan of cities. And the cool thing about Orlando is it doesn't take that long to get to just regular suburbs and maybe even country living if you wanted to. There's a lot of people that even homestead here and things like that. And no affordable housing. Guess what? This is one of those things that people get really passionate about this topic. And I can tell you, like, it doesn't matter where you live. A lot of times incomes change depending where you live, right? Like this isn't rural Mississippi. This isn't like middle of Montana, like not like in a big city, but like middle of nowhere. Like you're living in Florida. Florida is not the cheapest state by a long shot. But it doesn't mean it's, it is what it is. And no one's going to come and unfortunately save you. No one's going to come and all of a sudden build affordable housing. Because even like I've seen it happen all the time, especially in California. People go to build affordable housing, and guess what? It's not really that affordable. I mean, even out there, affordable housing is like $650,000. It's crazy. And in order to make it even that cheap, the government gets like a portion of your sale if you were to sell within a 10-year period. And it starts off like within the first 5 years, they get like almost all the equity, and then it starts to decrease up until year 10, and then they take nothing after that. But it's one of those situations where like that's affordable housing. There is no free ride. Everything costs something. I don't care what it is. Someone is paying the price somewhere along the lines. But yes, I mean, it is sad. Orlando has jumped up in price a lot. It's not like the most expensive city in Florida, but it's pretty up there. The thing is like I tell people is like, hey, guess what? You might not be able to afford it now, but what can you do to make it fit like 5 years now, right? Start thinking longer periods. You might have to move out. That's how it is. That's how it works, unfortunately. And we fell into the same situation. Like there's plenty of other places we wanted to build our home when we went out here, but because of the cost of lots, we had to push farther out than we wanted to. And it is what it is. And I take full responsibility for my life, and I'm going to figure it out. But yeah, in terms of like the people, I don't know. I think that if you give out negative energy, you're going to find it. Personally, if you're in like the center of Orlando, yeah, when people tend to be on top of each other, they tend to not be like the nicest of people. But I can tell you, like, I mean, so when we took a road trip all the way up to Orlando to visit it, 'cause we didn't fly, we had 2 kids, no way, we're going to drive, took a road trip, and people were really friendly. Even the Airbnb we stayed in, I talked to the neighbor, it's the friendliest person in the world. It came from Canada. They moved down here like 15 years ago. Like, amazing conversation. But you're gonna find rude people everywhere. Like, that's just how it is. But I can tell you, people down here are generally, it's weird. Like in the South, and Florida's not so like South, but it's, it still has like, the parts of it. If people might not be like nicer, I think as a whole, America has gotten really rude, and it's something that like I really strive to be like a decent person to people. But even when we came back to San Diego after taking that trip, coming back to kind of make our amends here, when we knew that's where we wanted to live. I mean, I drove into the county, there was like no traffic, and someone, like, I was going like, probably up to like 70 getting on the on ramp, and because I wasn't going 90, the guy cut me off and then gave me the bird out the window, and I was like, oh sweet, I'm back in San Diego. So look, it's all like, where are you going, where are you living, and realizing that like, if you make the wrong decision when moving here and choose the wrong area on a whim, like, yeah, you're probably gonna have an experience like this. But hey, it's not for everyone. I mean, man, this person, I have a lot to say, but the last thing, worse healthcare. Yeah, you know what? That's one concern we did have, especially having a son who had some eye condition, and we're working through, is like Orlando healthcare. Like when you look at all of Florida, not the best. I will say, like in other cities, like they tend to have more specialists and better rated healthcare. Orlando's not really the highest up there. A lot of times, if you're looking for like really good specialties, you'll probably be going to Tampa. But Orlando, man, it's hit and miss. I'm not gonna say it's spectacular by any means. Like, you can look it up. You can look up hospital ratings and things like that. I've talked to like local nurses and their opinions on certain hospitals and things like that. And like overall, I found it to be average. I don't say Orlando is the best. Personally, like as a whole, I mean, man, you can talk to everyone, every city, people are going to have good and bad to say about hospitals and things like that. It's hit and miss. It really depends on your experience and who you deal with. Like a great hospital that has great like success rates for surgeries and things like that could have like the rudest like staff ever. It's hit and miss. But yeah, Orlando's definitely not going to be one of the best cities in Florida when it comes to, man, I'm not going to say like being able to meet your needs for healthcare, but when we did the research, and I encourage everyone to look it up, it's not like the best when it comes to specialists when you look at ratings overall. All right, the second one we have, Orlando seems to be an alarmingly segregated city in terms of neighborhoods are gated or brick walled. No chance for communities to share daily experiences. I don't know where this person's looking for home, so clearly they did not call me, right? Or any other specialist here in Orlando, because they seem to choose the wrong area. Again, this goes back to why I'm saying you have to make sure you know where you're going. I don't know what they mean by segregated. I hope they don't mean by like no culture and like separation that way, because that's not my experience, especially having like my kids who are half Hispanic. It's weird. But like in terms of native, like communities are gated or brick walled. Okay. Like you find that everywhere. I mean, any major city is going to have communities that are like private, gated. Maybe some have guards and things like that. Like there's so many different ways to go about it. Like you have Golden Oaks, right? A clearly gated community. They don't want just people. You spend so much money to go in a community. Like, you really want random people just driving through looking at homes? No. So, I mean, yeah, there are gated communities, and some people really love that. Me personally, I don't like that. So we chose to build outside of community. And we built just independently on a lot we have, because I like community. I love knowing my neighbors. There's nothing wrong with that. I think it's a great thing that America was built on. I think it should keep that way. But that being said, like I think personally a lot of people have that opinion, because most people like they call it like their garage door closers, like I call them. Like they come home, they drive their car in the garage, they close that door, and they're never stepping outside until they have to go to work again. That's the wrong way to go about it. And if you're not reaching out to your community and actually trying to get involved in your community, you're not going to see that connection. Like, and that unfortunately, like when we come out here, especially with no family, no friends in the city at that time, we had to build community. You have to go out there, you have to meet people, and it's really hit and miss. And maybe it's not for you, but you need to understand that if you are making the decision to move out here, start small. Start like, what do you like to do? Go from there. If you have kids, it gets a little bit easier because they kind of force you into situations from sports and stuff like that. Like I've had to coach my son's soccer team and stuff like that. Like you have to get out there and be involved with people. But like, I think, again, it goes back to you have to make the right decision when moving out here, because if you choose the wrong area, I don't care what city it is or what town, like you're going to have the worst experience ever if you don't choose the right area for you. All right, and the last one, talking about Orlando, needs to have more affordable housing available for those who don't make a lot of money and don't receive disability or Social Security. Orlando's not cheap anymore. It just seemed to, we have seen actually the first month coming out, I did a video about this in July, we finally saw the average home price drop. It was only by like $7,000, but it's still like, I like to see a trend in that direction. A lot of people think, obviously being an agent, that I want home prices to be insanely expensive because I make more money. I'm like, not at all. I have a whole list of people that like couldn't afford a home. They can afford the rent barely, but they can't afford homes. And I hate that because owning a home in America is what it all about to me. It's owning your land and you and stuff like that, and having control of your life and not having to pay for someone else to get rich. While I do like to invest, I totally understand that it's a hard thing for people. And unfortunately, I don't see it getting better anytime soon. And that's the downfall of having certain like economic conditions is things get expensive and rise. I can tell you, don't look for like handouts for Orlando to magically get cheaper, because someone always pays the price and it comes back way or another. You might get affordable housing and all of a sudden sales tax increase, right? But Florida's not the cheapest. Insurance rates are insane compared to other states. Housing, it's more affordable than a lot of other places. I know people don't like hearing that. And for those of you who are relocating, I think a lot of times we tend to have higher incomes than the people maybe who have been here a long time. But it all depends on what industry you're in, who you're working for, and things like that. And I can tell you that we've had to take multiple jobs too. Like, I don't know. Like you have to do what you have to do. And if you're looking to move to Orlando, I know one of the most popular videos I've had recently is affordable housing. And unfortunately, you might have to move farther away from Orlando in order to get that. Or maybe you need to look elsewhere in Florida. I get that. And I have partners like anywhere in Florida. Like, I've made partnerships with people because I understand that sometimes people reach out to us and they're like, you know what, Cameron, I don't know about Orlando, but I'm looking to move to this area of Florida. Could you help me out? I'm like, absolutely. Because I understand, like, even like us, when you're relocating, like, things aren't set in stone. Until you're physically here, things can change. Back even after 2 years, you might be like, hey, I went and visited the other city in Florida. Like, I need to move. I get it. So realize that a lot of times it's realizing it's give and take. If you can't currently afford that neighborhood you want now, you might have to buy somewhere or rent somewhere else a little bit outside of where you want to, and play that game where you increase your savings. Maybe you get that promotion, whatever you need to get into it. Unfortunately, like, we all want to live in like the shack mansion, right? When that sold a couple years ago, but it's a stepping stone. Like, life, like, no one just gets there are no free handouts. Like, you have to be able to realize that when you come here, sometimes you got to pull your bootstraps up. I mean, I've seen people who moved to Orlando with nothing. They really didn't have much at the time. I was starting my business from scratch when I came out here, really. And you have to realize that when you make that relocation for a better life, it's like you have to make sure you understand why you're moving somewhere, and understand that there are going to be struggles when you move here. But again, if you are looking for areas to kind of fit your budget, like, reach out to us. And I hope this video gave you insight into some real people giving their real opinions about Orlando. And it's the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's not for everyone. And I encourage everyone that you've never been to Orlando, don't just look at the surface. You have to come and visit the area. And if you are looking to kind of curve that learning, this number popping up below is how you can get a hold of me and the team. Call, text, email, whatever you have to do. I'm here to help you kind of solidify your plan and find areas that fit your budget. Because if things are all confusing and all over the place, trust me, I understand that if you move to the wrong area, it can completely shatter what you're trying to do, which is probably to have a better life, just like we did when we moved here. So hope you got value in this video. Look forward to seeing you in the next one.